On this episode, I spoke with Felicity Robinson about the benefits of schools using their outside space for more than just fun and by developing activities that support the curriculum.
I'm Felicity Robinson. My company is Landscapes Naturally, and I'm a landscape architect and teacher. And the principal function of what I do is engaging school communities in transforming outdoor learning and play, focusing on taking children outside for learning as well as playtime. It's about encouraging teachers to take the regular curriculum outside, not just the special stuff, not just the project work, but actually the kind of everyday curriculum. Working outside in the natural world allows children to do things that are kind of bigger, louder, messier, a lot more fun, a lot more memorable probably. It gets them out into the fresh air. The physicality is very important too. So the children, through their regular everyday learning, are being more physical, because we all know the problems of lack of physicality in schools is stacking up health problems for our children. And I think obviously access to the seasonal change, not just in the early years, but throughout the children's life in school, and how that can be picked up through literacy and maths. The most important of all really is the mental health and well-being of our children. There's so much evidence out there now about the importance of children being outside in their learning time as well as their playtime. And in my view, it's just too important not to do it. As a landscape architect, one of the things that I do is work with groups of children outside so they can learn a little bit about landscape architecture as a potential future career, along with other relevant careers, but really building on their skills for the future, their problem-solving abilities, team working, trial and error, working on problems outside, finding a solution to, for example, a design problem. So if we were, for the sake of argument, designing a space where they could take their learning outside. So one of the things I would do is get the children out there doing the measuring, doing the thinking, working on how big the space needs to be, where the seating needs to go, if any, and basically developing the solution to the problem themselves. To do that, they need to work in teams. They need to apply their mathematical thinking. They learn a lot through trial and error. And I think they also build resilience too, because it's one of the things we do alongside this is model building, so thinking about scale. And I can remember an example of a child who was busy building a model, and we were emphasizing scale. I think it was year 5 or year 6. And I took the model child, which I always make. I give everybody a model child of a little pipe cleaner person. And they knew about the scale right at the beginning of the project. And I took this little model child into this person's model. And they were really dismayed to find that the child couldn't reach any of the bits of structure they'd just built. So we had a conversation about scale. And then, so a bit disgruntled, pulled it all apart, remade it, and then the model child was able to climb it. And that the look on that child's face was just brilliant. They'd really solved a problem and felt really proud of themselves, and I think learned an awful lot about scale. So that's a very practical example, I think, and also about that's resilience too. That's coming back from making an error and learning from it. And resilience is a really important skill for the future that our children need to learn. One of the most important things the schools need to demonstrate is having an ambitious curriculum that especially supports disadvantaged children. And there are many, many anecdotal evidence examples of children who really struggle in the four walls of the classroom. They may not show their aptitudes in particular ways, and when they are outside, they absolutely shine. Some of them become leaders who were not inside. They discover skills that they didn't know they had. And by the same token, some of the children who really perform well in the classroom, they go outside and actually feel disadvantaged and maybe need to ask for support, ask for help, and perhaps through that they learn a bit of empathy for those children who feel disadvantaged in the classroom. So I think it's a win-win both ways. Many teachers are completely up for this, feel very comfortable outside, and for them it is absolutely a natural thing to do. There are equally a lot of teachers for whom taking a class outside it can be not a problem so much as they just lack a bit of confidence in taking the children outside. It might be behavioural issues. It might be lack of confidence in their subject knowledge when outside, because there might be, I don't know if it's to do with plants and stuff, maybe they don't feel they know enough. But my answer to that really is that they need to be learning with the children, and they can demonstrate and model how to find out things they don't know. So just because they're outside and don't necessarily know a lime tree from an ash tree, that doesn't matter, because there are ways of finding out and they can model that. And I think the other thing about the behaviour outside, some teachers think that they will lose the class and they won't be on task when outside as much as they might be inside. But I think one of the things to say is that the more children are outside learning, the more they respect that as a learning environment as well as a play environment. So if the playground or whole grounds are only used for play, then to begin with, yeah, they might think, okay, we're outside, we're playing. But the more you do it, the more they respect it. And that's been shown over and over again. And the other really interesting thing is that if in lesson time you are modelling activities, for example, I can remember a task which included runes, so making names and words from sticks. So that was done as a class activity. And then at break time, that same activity became something that they were playing, and they were demonstrating to other children, and they were sort of teaching, so to speak, other children how to do runes and make a runic language. So by doing that, they were actually reinforcing their learning. And that wouldn't have happened if that rune activity had been done inside the classroom. A lot of people feel that a lot of money is involved in getting ready for outdoor learning or having resources and so on. The thing I like to emphasise is actually that whatever you have in the grounds is a resource for learning without having to buy anything. So the sort of CPD training that I do, really, I take the grounds as I find them, and all the resources that are out there, the leaves, the sticks, the found objects, the bits and pieces that are out there, and demonstrating how those can be used to develop elements of literacy and numeracy. Not just the science, which is the easy stuff to do in many ways outside. It's the regular, everyday, and on a particular hot day, for example, and maybe children are doing something like that, symmetry in the classroom, take them outside for 10 or 15 minutes, find some bits, do some rotational symmetry around some sticks in the playground, then go back in the classroom, and they've had a bit of fun, they've worked on the principles in the open air, and then they can come back and accurately draw what they've just done. So one of the first things to do when thinking about using your grounds for learning is a curriculum audit of the grounds, which is something that I lead on in one of the first things I would do with the school in something like a CPD sessions, is to look at the grounds and look at the curriculum and help the staff to see where all those opportunities are. Obviously, senior leadership needs to be actively involved in this, because some teachers say, because I do training for the RHS and for Learning Through Landscapes and other organisations, and the teachers that come to that training say, well, I'd love to do more, but the senior leadership thinks I'm just playing with them outside. So actually getting senior leadership on board and they demonstrate that they value the outdoors for learning, and then it becomes easier to embed it across the curriculum. And especially for NQTs who come in and may have had very little, if any, training in how to use the outdoors, again, senior leadership is really important on that score as well. In my conversations with children in schools, and sometimes this is school council, sometimes it's classes, one of the questions I often ask is to tell me about a particular project that they really have strong memories of. And very often these elements of memorable learning that they tell me about have taken place outside. So they remember a project that they did or a piece of an activity that they did, and it was outside, and they can tell me more about it. So I think that's a good example of the importance of being outside as well, because obviously we want the children's learning to be memorable.
Thank you for listening. If you need to find a trusted supplier for your school, call 01905 780 059 or visit worcestershireeducationnetwork.co.uk.